Hey guys, thank you so much for coming out. I really don't have a lot to say except I want to thank our awesome sponsors, and they're listed in the program book. We also have a great host committee, and their photos are in here, and our prep team as well. I do want to shout out our partners because they're the ones that make this event possible. First and foremost, we have the Johns Hopkins Carey School of Business, or Carey Business School. Thank you guys for hosting. Alex, really appreciate it. You'll be hearing from the dean pretty soon. TEDCO, very grateful for your support. You guys are really great fans of ours, and vice versa. So thank you so much for your support. We'll be hearing from Jack and from Catherine in a bit. New York Life, Truist Bank, Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, Maryland Tech Council, VMS, AEG, Ryan and Wetmore, ETS, Startup Grind. There is a Startup Grind event on April 26th with Patrick Bryant and myself in DC, so mark your calendars. All that info will be available on websites, or you'll continue to get emails from us about these events. I want to also thank Keiretsu Forum, National Association of Business Owners and Entrepreneurs, the annual Wharton DC Summit, the Robert H. Smith School of Business, the Dingman Angels, Kobe and USIDC, Center for Advancing Innovation, the Baltimore Angels, FITSE, the Institute for Excellence in Sales, and Georgetown University, as well as the Founder Institute. Let's give it up for all of our great sponsors, please. A couple other program notes, and I'll turn it over to the dean. We have our next virtual event on March 30th, and we have a Connect Tales event in Arlington, Virginia on March 28th in person. All the stuff is on the CONNECTpreneur.org website. We also have a YouTube channel with over 500 videos of our presenting companies, and you're free to join and subscribe, and you'll get notifications when those videos get published. We also have an in-person event in Washington, D.C. on April 20th, so mark your calendars. You'll be hearing from us. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Alex Triantis, the Dean of the Business School. Alex is a great friend, partner, neighbor, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Chen, and welcome everyone to our humble abode here. It's exciting to see all of you and so much energy back there in the networking room. I always love being around entrepreneurs. I don't get to do that every day, but this is kind of my entrepreneurship week. We had a group of students who here from Carey, as well as the medical school, that had a biotrek up in Boston, and we had a great event on Monday night with many of our alums up there. We have one of our alums, Christoph Langauer, who's been an incredibly successful entrepreneur, just had another exit for $2.5 billion of his company, Thrive Early Diagnostics, which started here in Baltimore. Was sold to Exact Sciences. I think that was his fourth unicorn sale, and he's just started a new company called Curie.bio that's going to be an investor incubator, just raised $500 million and is writing about 100 checks over the next couple of years, seed run for $5 million apiece in the life sciences, and just unbelievable hearing his story. So then we went to Houston and Austin yesterday, and I was just telling Catherine just the energy, and many of our students, our online students who live there and are in our entrepreneurship specialization, and I hadn't been to Austin in 10 years. Oh my gosh, I mean, it's just a totally different city. And so that's what we're going to do here in Baltimore. Get a lot more companies starting up in Baltimore in this area. And absolutely. So let's start that right here, right now. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chen. Thank you all for coming.
Great, thanks. And you can see in the table of contents, we have a great program. We have some introductory remarks, an update on TEDCO, as well as the Maryland Tech Council. And then we have 7 awesome presenting companies. Our presenting companies will be available after the pitches in the back room, where they all have a table for networking with investors and whatnot. So I'd like to now bring up Jack Miner, who is the Chief Investment Officer of TEDCO. Ted, can you give us an update on TEDCO and the Maryland Venture Fund? Thanks.
So I think my title is anywhere from Chief Investment Officer to Chief Executive Officer, depending on if I replace my boss for this today. But I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with everybody in person, because I know I'll forget. If the TEDCO people could raise their hands, because I want you to find them and talk with them. Thank you very much as we go forward. As many of you know, TEDCO will be celebrating its 25th anniversary soon. Over the years, TEDCO has been in the middle of many of the different programs that are that were designed to help and support the ecosystem in which startups thrive, and also directly invest in companies to create jobs. This is part of our dual mandate as set forth by Maryland, but before we talk about these strategies, I want to step back for a second and talk about some macroeconomic trends. So I'm using the words I learned in business school. So there'll be Keynesian beauty contest is in here. So if I'm being graded, hopefully I get a good score. Arguably, the U.S. economy is taking a turn. How much of a turn and in what direction is irrelevant when it creates uncertainty in economic markets. The flight to safety creates a backdraft, leaving less risk capital available for us in early stage investing. With less money chasing more, or at least the same deals, the company valuations begin to drop. While it sounds gloomy, statistically, companies that come out of times like this do much, much better, are higher quality and higher valued companies. So this is a good time to start a company. On a regional level, capital concentration in New York and Bay Area account for 54% of all capital raised since 2019, or $330 billion just in those two areas. However, the pandemic has helped because as we look at where people invest, they used to invest within 100 miles of their office. They're now investing within almost 600 miles of their office, and being about 200 miles from Manhattan, that helps us here locally. There are numerous articles about how venture capital investing is decreasing and the dearth of early stage funding for minority founders. But TEDCO sees a different story. Our investments are up 84% since last year. Not only is TEDCO investing at record rates, but 56% of the investments we make are to minority founded companies. Our dual mandate of economic development and financial returns puts us in a unique position to provide exactly what the state of Maryland designed for us with early stage funding. Be a consistent, transparent, fair source of funds for early stage Maryland technology companies. It could be argued that TEDCO is not a venture fund, and I would not argue that to a point. But we are an early stage technology investor that invests in companies from concept to exit. So a considerable amount of our energy as a team goes into teasing out high potential companies based on transformative technology, often with unproven founders. We're not just betting on the jockey, as the investor cliche goes. We're betting on a lot of things that are going to go right within the company. The market, the technology, regulations aren't going to stand in the way, but we're making that bet nonetheless. And this is where the comparison diverges from a traditional venture fund. A traditional fund will place bets, as you'll probably hear later, with much more information than what we have as an early stage investor. We just don't know what many of the variables are going to be over the next few years, but we place a bet anyway. We're very much okay with writing the first check into a company. That's the purpose of our funds, and after myself being here for almost 2 years, I realized that our purpose is to build bridges when no one else is going to build them, and we are an instrumentality of the state. These bridges can roughly be looked at by company stage. So at a pre-seed stage, our money is used to solve for an unknown. And if that unknown can be transformative, then we'll place a bet at a seed stage. In the seed stage, we're looking at scaling a KPI. So that key performance indicator, if we can make that come true as well, we enter into a venture stage where we're investing in somewhat of a Keynesian beauty contest and very focused on syndicating additional investors or follow-on funding. We invest between $50,000 and $1.5 million in qualified Maryland businesses. While it might not be hundreds of millions of dollars, we invested $5.7 million in 20 companies in the last 6 months. We are on target to deploy 100% of the money allocated to us by the state as well as the Federal Department of Treasury. Our average deal size is $285,000 and the national average is $12.3 million. So we're writing checks to the first inflection point, and 3 of the top 6 companies regionally in the recent years were funded by TEDCO, and everything from immuno-oncology to cybersecurity. While all of these 3 companies were founded in Maryland, two of the 3 exited in other states, underscoring the need for local venture growth funds to keep Maryland-founded companies in Maryland. So I think, you know, some of the discussion you were having earlier about companies creating this huge value, is how do we create some of that value and keep that here? And also recognizing that companies that are of high potential oftentimes do leave the state, and that's not bad because they come back and they continue to contribute to the region. So for 24 years, the state of Maryland funded TEDCO, TEDCO to facilitate the translation of technology from federal labs and universities. Since the start, TEDCO has been in the front of numerous programs, including accelerator support, entrepreneurial development, and of course, investing in early stage money when no one else would lead. It is from the support of organizations like this and the speaker who will follow me, Kelly Schultz, who provided so much support and vision, knowing that there are times when an instrumentality of the state would lead, and Maryland has done that for nearly 25 years. So thank you very much for that. And Kelly.
Yes. I told him, if you're introducing me, please make it short. Let's do the really, really short version of that. Hi, I'm Kelly Schultz. I'm the CEO of the Maryland Technology Council. And first, I just want to take a brief pause. And I don't see, oh, there's Tien. He's got the camera in his hand. Can we all just acknowledge the intensity and the intentionality of what Tien offers to this entire community in Baltimore and in Maryland in general? So thank you, Tien. Because it does take intention. And when I talk about intention, I want to just refer to that to the Maryland Tech Council. And just for those of you that do not know, the Maryland Technology Council is the largest advocacy membership organization for life sciences and technology in the state of Maryland. Big announcement today. We have surpassed our 700 member mark. And that was a really big deal. Thank you, Joy. That's right. Big happy applause. And what does that mean? That means that we represent almost 160,000 employees, people, humans in the state of Maryland for what we do in order to be able to get out and talk about what your missions are moving forward. We do exist to be the voice of this community. We're a platform to connect, educate, and advocate for our members in the marketplace at the local, state, and federal level. And boy, we know how busy that is these days. We are rapidly expanding. Many of you may know, some of you may be members here, but we do have 3 chapters. One, which is going into their 1st year anniversary, and that's the Prince George's County Technology chapter of the Maryland Tech Council, so we're excited for them. We also have chapter right here in Baltimore. We have Baltimore Regional Chapter and a Chesapeake Regional Chapter, which is based out of Annapolis and maybe just a teeny tiny bit over that big bridge that we all love so much. We have annually over 75 member events a year that deal a lot with networking, getting to know who you are, a lot with educating, and a lot with advocating. So for those of you that have attended in the past, thank you. For those of you that need to be out there, let's come and see what we can do about helping you to learn what you need to know about the community in Maryland. So what are our big goals for 2023? I've been with the Tech Council, I'm in my 5th month, so I'm an expert. Not really, but I do know, just coming from my years at the Department of Labor and at the Department of Commerce, the #1 goal and the #1 thing that is on everybody's mind is workforce, workforce, workforce. And how do we do that? How do we find the talent? To your point, how do we keep the talent here in the state of Maryland? How do we make sure that we build the best ecosystem in the entire nation for businesses involved in life sciences and technology? So workforce is going to be a big part of that effort. We all know that there's thousands of vacant jobs in tech and life sciences and not enough skilled workers to fill those jobs. We're working to recharge the talent pipeline, and fortunately for me, having that workforce background, I came to the Maryland Tech Council after they announced and after they received some funding from the state and feds in order to create the BioHub of Maryland. That BioHub of Maryland is going to be phenomenal. We are this close to starting online skilled training for the life science community, and I'm so excited to get that going. And by Q3, we will have in-person training for people going into that biomanufacturing and pharmaceuticals in the state. And so we're really excited about that. It is a learn and earn type of program. So we want businesses to cooperate and participate so that we can make sure that we are the best ever. We also have a partnership with an organization called Platoon 22. Any veterans in the room here? Thank you very much for your service. Platoon 22 is an organization out of Frederick County, and they have offered up some of their space and their talent and their veterans to take part in some of our first cohorts to train them from military to civilian life and entering a completely new career pathway so that they can begin their civilian life in a career that is going to be never ending and with no lack of opportunities. And we're also taking on at the Tech Council, because of the workforce shortage, when I was at the Department of Labor, I made a point that I said the word apprenticeship at least 3 times every time I stood up and talked in front of people. So I'm going to say it to you 3 times, apprenticeships, apprenticeships, apprenticeships. So the Maryland Tech Council wants to be an apprenticeship sponsor, and we want to help our members to bring in those apprentices so that they can have that learning and earning opportunity, and we can take the burden off of our members so that they can be a part of that opportunity. And it's really such a great program. Shout out to, just going to say it, it's not Johns Hopkins, but we're getting there with Johns Hopkins. University of Maryland, Baltimore County, they were the first in the state and the first in the nation to start a cyber apprenticeship program for military going into civilian life. And I'm so excited because the word apprenticeship is not just about the trades anymore. It's about all those non-traditional positions. So our priorities right here in Baltimore. For those of us that are here in Baltimore, obviously, we're going to continue with those workforce opportunities. We have chapter opportunities, but we've created 3 strategic partnerships just recently, and we put a press release out about a week and a half ago. The first is with 110. 110, if many of you have heard of them, it's a gentleman by the name of Maurice Jones. He has started an effort to have the tech industry hire 1 million Black unskilled tech workers. And by unskilled, I mean without a 4-year or a 2-year degree going into the world within 10 years. So we have started that partnership. We have an MOU with them to create an opportunity for them to come in front of all of our members in the tech community here in Maryland and in Baltimore specifically, so that we can talk about upskilling and create the exact type of workforce that those industry partners need to be successful and to grow and to expand. We've also gone into partnership with the Baltimore Digital Equity Coalition. I'm really excited. If any of you know Cody Dorsey, he's really phenomenal. He's out there in Baltimore creating that equitable opportunity for inner city and rural parts of the state so that they have an opportunity for that digital environment to come into every single neighborhood, every single town, every single home, every single business across the state. So he asked for us to provide one of our board members to sit on his board, and we're really thankful to have that opportunity to do that. Very significant for economic growth and vitality and for personal growth in the state. And then the last partnership that we just announced is with the Federal Laboratory Consortium. Has anybody heard of the Federal Lab Consortium? I know TEDCO has because they're a partner as well. Most people don't. Most people don't know about the resources that are available at the local, state, and federal levels. At the federal level, there's an organization, the FLC, that directly connects businesses, entrepreneurs, research developers, scientists, academia with one of the 74 federal laboratories that exist here in the state of Maryland. 74 laboratories exist here. And that's a great organization. We're going to be doing some educational programs in order to directly connect members and those from the community with that organization so that they can be a part of it. So I talked about, that part with our partnerships. Just want to very briefly touch on the Baltimore Regional chapter here. That offers us at the Maryland Tech Council under one big umbrella to have more events, more networking opportunities, and a stronger voice, especially in this local region, for what the businesses here need to be able to get across and to be able to relay. I'm really proud of that chapter. They've done such a good job. And then the next thing I want to discuss, our next big thing for Baltimore. Joy, I just want you to stand up and raise your hand real quick. If anybody doesn't know Joy Hoffman, you need to know her. She is our specialist in our venture mentoring service, and we call it lovingly VMS, and we're very proud of the opportunity that it has offered over 100 businesses. About 107 right now that have taken the opportunity to enroll in a free effort to receive mentoring services from some of the smartest, brightest, most successful and accomplished people in the state of Maryland. We have now about 218 trained mentors, and every time a new mentee is brought into the program, they get assigned to about 3 or 4 different mentors that have different backgrounds and different services. Did I say it's free? It's free because we have a grant, because we are licensed through MIT. It's a model based on their program, and I'm really excited about that. And this goes back to my original conversation about TN. It's all about being intentional. And the Maryland Tech Council is intentional in growing this ecosystem. Excited to be a partner with so many of you in the room and outside of the room, and I'm looking forward to, for those that are not members, perhaps a conversation in the near future about how we might be able to help you grow your workforce and your business. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelly, and congratulations on the growth of the membership base, and also to Joy on the VMS. VMS is awesome. I remember when you guys started. It's amazing that you guys have already incubated over 100 companies. So any startup founders that really want some great resources, you have TEDCO and you also have VMS. So anyway, with that, I'd like to bring up the panel, which will be moderated by Alex Triantis. I'll just name their names. If you guys can come on up to the stage. We have Dean Alexander Triantis, who will be our moderator. Maurice Boissier, who is the Chief Customer Officer of Data Tribe. Mark Grovick with New Markets Venture Partners. I think Mark is here, but he was on a phone call earlier. He closed a $160 million fund and announced it last week. So hopefully, Mark, is Mark here yet? Okay, Mark may be joining late.
He's here.
Oh, he's here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Catherine Hill Ritchie, who is a Senior Director of Venture Funds with TEDCO, and Andy Magliochetti, who's a Managing Partner from Iron Gate Capital Advisors. I think I see Mark. Okay.
There he is.
Let's give it up for Mark Grovick, everybody. So congratulations, Mark, also on the closing of the round. But excuse me, thanks for coming. I'll turn it over to the Dean, and we'll have an interesting panel, after which we will have pitches from 7 awesome companies.
Awesome. Thank you, Chan, so much. Great entry, Mark. I love it. You do that all the time? Or?
I try.
So wonderful. Well, you know who everybody is here, but I think the natural starting point is to learn a little bit more about what they do and how they came to do what they're doing. So I wanted to give each of our panelists an opportunity to say a little bit about themselves and their organizations, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into that. We're going to leave most of the time open for Q&A for the audience as well. So think about good questions here. So Maurice, let's start with you.
All righty. Maurice Boissier. By the way, Tiana, that was a great job on that last name. I'm with Data Tribe. Data Tribe is a seed stage cybersecurity investor based in Fulton, Maryland, sort of down the street from NSA, down around the corner from APL. We have done about 18 companies so far. Probably the biggest one, best known one, is Dragos, which is approaching 700 people. But we're a studio model, so we're not just capital, but we bring founders into our space, which is rent-free, food-free, like all of the investment to go towards customer acquisition and product development. And And then we, sort of work on building out, I think, Tedco was talking about that venture stage growth. So we were kind of proving out that there's a problem here and somebody's willing to pay to solve that problem. And we get to a stage where we then help that company raise their Series A round.
Great. Catherine.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Thank you. I must have done an okay job last time I was invited to come speak again. But as we already heard from our CIO, Jack Miner, and some of my other colleagues are here today. So at TEDCO, I work on the venture fund. So that's the Series A and up. But I would say we have such a collaborative environment at work that, it's not that they're just lanes that we all stay in. We work together because sometimes people will apply and they might be better for the pre-seed portfolio or the seed portfolio. So we're very collaborative. And really, we just want companies to apply to TEDCO and we'll figure out maybe where you need to be. But I've been there for now a little over a year and it's just been fantastic. And I'm really proud of our portfolio and we are continuing to invest. So I'm going to go into more detail about that later.
Good. Thanks. Andy.
Good morning. I'm Andy Magliochetti, one of the managing partners at Iron Gate Capital Advisors. We're a venture platform that invests in early stage technologies that are dual use in nature. So those that support the national security and also have broader applications in the civilian economy. We work closely with the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, and other civil agencies to sort of identify and bring in private sector technologies that are developed in the private sector to satisfy sort of urgent mission requirements. So with that, over to you.
Hey everybody, hello, there we go. Okay, Mark Rovick. I am the founder and general partner at New Markets Venture Partners. We have about $250 million under management, and we invest in growth stage companies in the education and workforce areas that have measurable improvements in outcomes for students or employees. So anything that drives third grade literacy, sixth grade math, career and college ready, college retention, and then anything in the workforce, upskilling, reskilling. So HR tech and ed tech would be an easier way to say it. Kind of $2 to $5 million revenue minimums, and we invest nationally. And then my other claim to fame is the Terps, so go Terps tonight. I taught for Alex for 15 years when he was at the Smith School and taught entrepreneurship, so happy to share any of that. Was on the tech transfer committee at the University of Maryland, and then ended my career at the university with UMUC, and we spun out a company called Helio Campus that we invested $5 million in and sold for $40 million. And I built an entrepreneurship MOOC over there and helped the president with B2B strategy, mostly around launching some cyber programs with industry. So if any of that's relevant to anybody's work, I'm happy to try and be helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. So let's do another quick take around the table to talk a little bit about what you all see in terms of the overall current market for funding startups. Any particular examples of where your organizations are investing at this point, although you've given a couple, which industries, what stage, but just in terms of sort of getting a feel for where we are right now in the current market state. So, Mark, maybe we'll go the other way. Start with you this time.
So just to give some examples of stuff we're excited about, we're in the leading prison education company in the U.S. We're in the leading dropout recovery for high school, which is you get charter school revenue model there. So you get the $10,000 per student for recovering and graduating folks under their own high school. That's been a terrific one. We are in leading mental health intervention for higher ed. It's going really well. We just did a company that helps skills-based hiring. So as corporations are dropping the BA requirements and focusing more on skills, we help do skills assessments and recruiting. In the HR world, we did the leading credentialing company in the U.S., offering credentials and credential platform. We just sold that one to Pearson. So I think that's the best way to think about examples. And again, our sweet spot, we just looked, we were able to sell 10 companies in the last 3 years, which I've never said in my career. I've been doing this for 30 years. And so, it's definitely, we're moving from a selling market, I think, to a buying market. I think you'll get into that a little bit. Those 10 companies sort of represented white space in the higher ed and the employer market around skills training and skills hiring, I think.
So clearly a very hot space that you're in right now, and certainly this DC Baltimore area is particularly renowned for that as well. So you're in the perfect
And we love
place.
off the beaten track, which I consider this area, right? So we're a little anti-Valley in terms of unicorn hunting and valuations, and we like to build real cash flow positive companies that serve people well and not invest in pyramid schemes, which I think a lot of it's $1 billion or nothing for a lot of entrepreneurs out in the Valley. So sometimes we prefer this area a little more grounded.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Andy.
So as an example, I'll sort of talk about the last two companies we invested in. One is a company called Privateer Space that at the simplest is sort of air traffic control for space as it relates to not only sort of operational assets, but also debris. That company was co-founded by Alex Fielding, who previously founded Ripcord, and Steve Wozniak, who sort of needs no introduction. Most recently, a company called Aeon 3D, which produces an additive manufacturing platform that is material agnostic, but also has a really compelling kind of data layer between the product and the machine that dramatically cuts down on the iterative process of making 3D parts, and also sort of predicts sort of failure points in the design. I guess part of your question was, kind of where are we today? What sort of trends are we seeing? I mean, look, generally speaking, I think kind of the idea of, which has never been part of our thesis, but kind of momentum investing by VC funds is proving itself to not be a sound strategy, right? And that sort of being the idea that we had this period of time where valuations were sort of just going up for not necessarily fundamentally sound reasons. And you could see, certain managers that were sort of deploying capital to just sort of catch that valuation instead of catching an inflection point that fundamentally is creating value in the companies. Look, deals are still getting done. Look, the second half of 2022 was like the 6 months of convertible financing, right? I mean, there was more convertible financing activity than I've seen before. I think a couple other trends would be, founders are sort of being more rational in the idea that they need to, when they do raise capital, they need to provide some optionality for themselves in longer amounts of runway. Whereas kind of in the momentum period where folks were raising amounts of capital that would take them through short periods of time, primarily driven by the fact that they wanted to hoard equity, right? Whereas not only COVID, but kind of the last 10 months as well, have shown folks that they do need kind of deeper pockets there. I don't know if I'm answering your question precisely, but
You could explain why there's so much convertible financing. I mean, I understand.
Yeah. I mean, there was a sort of six. If we think about the comparison of a convertible note financing, where you're effectively raising debt that converts at either a discount to the next equity financing, or a cap valuation, or a combination of both. It's a way to bring capital into the firm without having a pegged equity valuation. So there's some give and take between the founders and the investors, but at the same time, it's not setting a benchmark for the valuation of the company, and they can bring capital in to take them from one place to another. And I think there was a hesitancy in that 6 month period in particular, like June through December, of investors wanting to kind of commit to specific valuation metrics or, in particular, there might have been some down round activity absent that.
Like,
right?
what if
I
you
mean,
raised at a high valuation that was too high for
Yeah.
most of the market in normal times, and then you double your revenue, and you come to somebody and your last round valuation was still too high for them to invest? That's happening all the time, and this feels terrible to an entrepreneur, right? I see a lot of heads nodding, and so we're in a position where, you know, we feel terrible because we need a down round to do the deal based on historic metrics. And you say, but I've doubled my revenue since our last round. And so convertible notes sometimes.
Yeah, it'll take you from that last equity financing to the next and still show positive progress. And from an investor's perspective, I mean, we like the idea that we can increase our positions in companies at the, you know, at a value that's probably less than the next equity round. I think there's also a much keener focus on kind of go-to-market or expansion. How are you wisely spending dollars raised to increase distribution and sell-through instead of you know, here are the 12 ideas we have. We're going to kind of iterate them all at once and see what works, right? But I guess and I'll pause there. But I guess the good news is, look, deals are still getting done. Great companies are still getting founded and funded.
Well, just as a little reminder about what we do. So at TEDCO, we are tech agnostic, but it's got to be a technology company. So here in the state of Maryland. So we don't do services businesses or real estate, for example. So, you know, because my colleagues up here have pretty defined investment industries when we are across the board. So, for example, just in the past 6 months, in the number of deals we've closed. I mean, it could be biotech, therapeutics, software, consumer products. It's across all industries. So what we're looking for is some, you know, tech component. But the door is open. It doesn't matter what's going on in the rest of the world. TEDCO has money every year, and we are investing year-round, taking in applications year-round. There's no fundraise that we have to stop investing, and then it's continuous, it's evergreen. So this is an interesting time for us because we haven't stopped, we're not pulling back, and we want companies to come here. And yesterday I was talking to the Momentum Fund here in Maryland, and there's 4 cybersecurity companies who want to relocate to Maryland. Great. Because we have money here. And so we are trying to get that message out that we want to look at all of these companies. We'd like you to come here. But in terms of, valuations and, we do convertible notes, we don't do safes, and we do equity. And we have always been really emphasizing to our entrepreneurs, you're right, you don't want to raise money at a really too high of a valuation because of what happens next. And but at the same time, this is a great investment time. I worked for many family offices, and when they can personally decide when to allocate money or pull back. But I do think that that's not the way to go. I think right now there are great companies being formed. There are companies raising money at better valuations. And we don't want to squash anyone's valuations down. That's something that's important to us. We don't want to take advantage of an entrepreneur. And I've been hearing stories out there of of some, vulnerable companies selling off a large percentage to investors because they're desperate. And we don't want to do that. We want to be supportive, but we want to make a return too. We're not philanthropy. We want the money back. But I'll stop there for now. But the emphasis really is, we haven't changed the way we do things at all, and we won't because we don't need to. And we still believe in investing in early stage, pre-revenue. We're not going to stop doing that.
Great. And you talked specifically about cyber, Maurice. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what you see in the cyber sector.
This thing on? Yeah, there we go. So Data Tribe, I'll try to answer this question with a couple of different hats. Data Tribe hat is a very narrow lens of the market because we look at cybersecurity. We look very early, so we like to say we're looking at over the horizon. So we're trying to bet on what's the problem that will need to be solved in 2 years, and it's an entrepreneur working on it. And we also have a little bit of a kind of a focus around what we call the Maryland ecosystem in cyber, which is intelligence community. So the intelligence community provides us with, the government has kind of stood up probably one of the deepest reservoirs of cyber knowledge and intelligence of anywhere in the world. They're like probably the best in the world. So we kind of, sort of look at that. And Data Tribe was founded by two people not in Maryland, who came to Maryland and said, hey, look, this is where all the talent is. We need to set up a shop that kind of can help commercialize great kind of cyber tradecraft and bring it out. So cyber is a super hot industry right now. It will be hot for a long time because the digital transformation of the world continues. As long as the world is going digital, cybersecurity will be in vogue. So you think of traditional cyber of all like your computers, but guess what? Now you have crypto security that you need to think about. The latest and greatest is generative AI. Guess what? There's a ton of cybersecurity issues when it comes to generative AI. So we love we love what we do in part because we think the world will continue to need protection against, as it kind of evolves and transforms. So cyber just happens to be a really hot space. And we look at deals across the country, but we are very Maryland kind of centric. Our last 3 or 4 deals have all been Maryland-based entrepreneurs. And so what we see is a kind of a disconnect between where the concentration of capital is, so West Coast New York, those founders, because cyber's hot, have not got the memo around, capital is constrained. They are still raising money at not nosebleed valuations. It is kind of like, okay, that's a little bit above what we were, what we're used to seeing, but versus before, but that's not even, end of discussion. We can't even think about that. So there is a disconnect there. But what happens is, I think, is environments where capital is not just readily available, you have more resilient entrepreneurs starting companies. You don't start companies on the idea of, okay, step 1, incorporate, step 2, go raise money, step 3, start the business, right? Like people actually start the business, they get customers, they figure out okay, this is what the customer wants. Before they go and raise capital. And that's really key. Why have so many, I think half the Fortune 500 was started during a downturn. And the reason for that is they were started from day one as a business, not as just a concept to go get funding around. And so we see a lot of that. We see a lot of great entrepreneurs who are living kind of the problem. We really, and for the entrepreneurs out there, really know your domain, especially in this environment, because what I see actually is the same amount of deal flow, if not more, and better quality entrepreneurs in that deal flow. Better quality in terms of this has been their, they've been playing basketball and they can tell me all about the point position because that's all they've done their whole life. And they really know their kind of their domain and their skill set. So in cyber, I see that, right? I also am on the advisory board for the Maryland Momentum Fund, so I get to see some non-cyber deals. And I also teach Alex at the Smith School. So, I get to see a nice cross section, and I would say cyber is different than a lot of markets these days because it happens to be a problem, a pain point that people are willing to pay for. So outside of that market, you as an entrepreneur really need to think about still starting that great business. Now you need to think longer and harder about how long will it take me to raise capital. Whether it's your first round of capital or whether it's from your angel to your first institutional, you need to be thinking about, okay, I need to have kind of scenarios. Before you didn't really need scenarios. You're okay, look, I'm going to do it. I know a guy who knows a guy, and I'm going to go raise a ton of money and hire my close friends. And we're going to build a great company. Nowadays, your friends aren't going to leave their day job as easily. Everything is just a little bit harder, but that's good. It being hard is good for you. You will be a stronger, more resilient company because building companies should not be easy, right? And therefore, I'd say that the big trend is build for the long haul, and build for the long haul and know your game. know your domain. Don't, like, the more generalities you have in your pitch, the quicker we can figure out you don't really know your game. You have to be really specific in your pitch, your approach. Have those scars from customers being pissed at you, staying up all night trying to solve a problem. Have those kind of scars because it shows when you pitch. I think the trend for me, I would say, is the markets come back to normal. I don't like to think of it as like the markets retracted. It's come back to like normalcy. And now I think entrepreneurs have to think longer term, and capital is thinking, more focus and higher quality, flight to quality, as they say. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's open it up to our many entrepreneurs out there. Anybody have questions? Anybody have scars? Here's a great panel. No pitches, but fire away with any questions you may have.
Catherine? Hi, I'm George Spears, CEO of Atera. Could you explain just TEDCO's process? I'd be really interested just from beginning to end, just how TEDCO operates.
Sure. So, and Jack had mentioned this earlier, we really try to be transparent and fair. So, as we all know, investors do talk with each other. We do syndications and things like that. But that also can lead to someone, quote unquote, skipping the line, right? So I'm sensitive to this because, we use the SETI definition, which is socially and economically disadvantaged individual. So, because there's all kinds of definitions right there, minority and MWBA and BIPOC and this and that, and they're all important. But SETI is interesting. We use that because that also can take into account geography, because some kid from Alabama who starts a company versus Silicon Valley, that is someone who is disadvantaged. Also, disabled is included in that. Okay, but anyway, so I just wanted to make that point. That's the pre-seed really has to focus on that. Anyway, so to be fair, we want everyone to apply. Why? Because then you're in our system. Because then you can't jump the line. Now, there are definitely, sometimes people are in more of a hurry to close, and we're sensitive to that too, because we want to get in good deals. But at the same time, that way it's fair. Everybody gets a chance. Everybody gets evaluation. Well, we might not invest in you and we have to turn away a lot, but at least you get the application and the look, which doesn't always happen because they don't have time. They may have tons of companies applying, which are inappropriate, wrong stage, and they don't have time. So they don't have time to answer you. And I understand that. And you may only invest in so many companies per fund. Well, we have a large volume, but we want to make sure everybody gets treated fairly. So at least we have seen your application and we get back to you. And that's really important. We also track all the statistics around that too. And that's why earlier Jack said, 56% of our portfolio is under that SETI definition, which is amazing. That's fantastic. I'm proud of that. So I know we're not, the overlooked entrepreneur, that's something that we're focused on because we just don't want that. So that's the process. So so within 30 days, we need to answer you. Now, it could be we're still doing due diligence or, but we have to get back to an applicant to say we've received it. And then, then it could be your typical due diligence and conversations as we go down the line. But we have to do due diligence. We have to go through an investment committee, just like any other fund has to. We have to write investment memos. We have to gather all of your information. So, those typical things I've been doing for 20 years. I've worked for family offices. I've worked for all, banks, you name it. The investment memo is the same, so that process is similar. But Maryland, TEDCO does have the Maryland requirement. We have to have more than 50% of employees in the state. So that's important. We literally count. Do you have a lease in Maryland? We want to see it. So those are the kind of things that are a little bit different from what I used to do in terms of due diligence. But those requirements have to be met. And then under the SETI definitions, there are some requirements have to be met. And then, for example, in the seed portfolio, we do have we do have some thematic. cyber, stem cell, life sciences. So anyway, and then we get to, investment committee and we get feedback. But the portfolio managers and I, because there's 4 of us here today, we do make the decisions about who we continue with on the due diligence, but we are very collaborative. So we talk to each other too about that. But that's really the process. So everyone has to apply. So, people try to contact us directly, and that's great. We want to be open to the community. But if you don't apply, you've got to apply. And that way, because we want everybody to be treated fairly. So.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. I think there was, did you have a question? Yes, just 1 second so we can get a microphone to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie Cohen-Roth. I'm a social entrepreneur and academic in the medical cannabis industry. I have Cannabis MD and TPAD. And question to Catherine, who you said it, but to the panel, you do not invest with safes, and I'd love to hear the panel speak to safes.
Well, the reason why, safes were started by, Y Combinator. And some of it was just to close deals quickly, right? And there are legal requirements we have within the state of Maryland. So it's not the best structure for us. That's why. So, but other people feel differently about it. And I think a lot of angels and early, angel and individual investors like safe notes. But we do consider ourselves an institutional investor, and we just have certain requirements where we can't do it. But we do convertible notes and equity.
Anybody else on the panel want to comment?
We consider ourselves first institutional capital. We usually won't do a company if it's already raised institutional capital just around venture economics. But so we don't do, all of our companies are priced rounds, as you call it, basically a valuation on what we think it's worth at the time, which is just kind of an art, not really science. And but safe notes are great. Safe notes have now kind of become as complicated as a convertible note, and that you have this post-safe note, which is becoming more popular. And let me tell you, if somebody gives you a post-safe note, just know that it's like an exploding thing. Like I've known, you look at a cap table after when you go to a closing. If somebody has a safe note, great, they convert it at whatever the percent is. Post-safe notes usually lock in a percent of the company that they own, that whoever the investor owns. So it's kind of variable. They could end up owning a lot more than you think. But so safes are a great thing. With the stand for a simple agreement for equity or something like that.
Yeah.
So all it did was it's like a conversion note that removed the loan part of it. So there's no interest rate on it. It's the simplest way to put it. But yeah, we accept them all the time, see them all the time from earlier stage. When you're at the earlier stage of the process, it's a simpler way to kind of get non-institutional money into the company.
Yeah, we're usually a little later, and so we'll do a full set of A-round docs, and we don't like unpriced stuff because we don't trust the next person to price well, so we don't want to get. So that's usually our philosophy. But the other thing I would say, just having done this for 30 years, is just eliminate friction. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? You have governance and economic terms. You want to agree with people. You want to raise money. If people want to give you money, you want to take it, right? That's usually very few people who end up taking money wish they didn't, but a lot of people who don't take money wish they had. And so just eliminate friction. If your investors want a safe note, have a safe note. If you have to spend $5,000 on legal to do something else, it's probably worth it if you have a good investor. And so make sure the terms are fair for you. But, there's only a finite number of terms that are going to be in a convertible note. It's probably going to have a cap. It's the same thing as a priced round in some ways. And I wouldn't get hung up on it.
Yeah, I guess I'd add, when I was talking about that convertible note activity, I was actually lumping in safe activity there too. We don't have any issue with investing in a safe. Typically speaking, we're not doing an uncapped safe. That's not going to work for us. But I think it's a really interesting tool to bring in capital between rounds. And we've seen plenty of institutional and strategic investors use a safe as an entry point between a price round. And those can be big names and for us as investors that may have participated in the prior or eventual subsequent round, it's a great way to get folks in without creating a lot of distraction and expense for the founding teams. for really early stage companies, it also creates sort of the same benefits, right? Not a ton of cost. You're pushing off the conversation about, how much equity am I selling you today in my, seed or my seed stage company. I guess one other point that I think is important is to really pay attention to structure. And they are getting as complicated as convertible notes, right? I mean, we just did one that, not just, but it was a discount with a cap with an MFN provision on that. I mean, it looked we were perfectly happy with the instrument, but just make sure that you very clearly understand the terms of the agreement. But I think it's a great resource for founders.
It's funny you bring that up. I have a friend who did a $20 million safe note between his A and his B round.
Yeah.
I was like, can you do that?
Yeah.
I did. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But it was West Coast, so to be fair.
But there's the other thing, like some of the strategics move a little too slowly to get them to act in time for, on the entrepreneur and the other investor's schedule.
Right.
And in that instance, I think the safe's a good tool too.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Jeanette Ortegon. I am the CEO of Waverly Technology, a new startup here in Maryland. And my question is for Maurice. During your presentation, you mentioned know your domain. And as a new startup, we're competing with other new startups, military experience. We basically all have the same thing that the customer is looking for. What would you recommend for improving your niche? What are some of the things that you would recommend for that new startup to kind of improve, to kind of basically make themselves more compatible, more competitive to win that contract or to win those deals?
Well, I'll speak in general terms as having grown up in entrepreneurship in this region, I've never done anything federal or government, so I have no idea how you win those big deals. But it really starts with, look, you come with a set of experiences to date. So I believe when we met earlier, you said you come from kind of the cyber community. So and as many people know in this film, cyber, it's a loaded term. Like it's a big waterfront. It's not just like, oh, it's some computer thing. There's training, there's great technology, there's hardware, software. Like, it's a big thing. But so what founders need to start with, like, what do I know? Like, what's my kind of unique, I hate to use the word unique value perhaps, but what's your thing? Like, so everybody has a thing. You have a thing that you know really, really well, right? Like, I mean, late in my career, I figured out that the only thing I really know is how to start a company. I don't really know anything about anything else other than starting companies. So I started working with people on starting companies. That was my thing. It's my jam. I love it. So I would say really think long and hard about, like, what do you know? Ask your friends, your colleagues, like, how do they define, like, your presence, like your unique value add. So I'd start long and hard by just looking at my internal skill set, and then also that cliche, like, you do what you love, you never work a day in your life kind of thing. Like, and figure out, like, what makes you happy in doing that, right? Like that flow state. And because I actually think flow state, like, is really important for entrepreneurs, because if it's a job, it shows up as a job, right? But if it's a passion, it transcends, like, it's infectious. And you want to make sure you hit that flow state, because it's an infectious thing that you can't really qualify it, but your love for the game will come across. Yeah.
I'm assuming, Chan, you'll cut me off when we have to, right here.
Morning, Edwin Schmier. I'm a co-founder of Rotational Labs. I have a question. We're about to launch our beta product, and we are targeting a fairly technical audience, so software engineers and data scientists. So my first question is around customer acquisition, distribution. Any advice you can share? Maybe are there any underappreciated channels we should be looking at? Any place we absolutely have to be? And then the second question is, we anticipate that there will be a difference between the actual buyer who holds budget and the end user who's actually using the product. So are there any ways to think about that, how to overcome that, how to align those interests?
Who wants to take that?
So yeah, all of our companies have complicated sales process, like 4 or 5 buyers. So that's always an interesting one. And I always hated when people gave me these pieces of advice because I didn't have any, but like, go to your friends first. And I was like, well, I don't have any friends. So that was always a tough, that was a tough one. But, initially it's all about those first pilots and reference customers. And it's just like your first money, right? You take it where you can get it. And you get those first pilot customers, you go to people who are friendly. Hopefully you have, I can even tell by the way you ask the question, you have a long experience in your space. And so you have built relationships, and you need those initial people to give you pilots and reference customers and build on that. And then, sure, there's a sales strategy where you're making everybody a winner and it's sales 101, and this person's got this sort of way to make them a hero, and then the user has a different way to make them a hero, and when you demo and that sort of thing, and make sure your sales engineers can speak the language of the person that's going to be the user, and think about, budget qualification for the person that's a buyer, and don't waste your time if they don't have the, your 4 101 sales qualification questions. That's blocking and tackling. And then so it's that those initial customers are like gold, and it's the toughest ones. And even getting people to test, for free. And then eventually absolutely not for free, right? So that's a really tough one. And if they could pay you a little bit initially.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, so this is, could you describe the company once more? Did you say it's ed tech around?
Within ed tech.
No.
Ah, okay, I'm sorry, I have a hearing problem too. But I absolutely agree that in that sense that, look, who is that first pool of customers, right? And I mean, I think if you think backwards through who sort of your dream customer is on the, at scale on a paying basis, right? How do you find someone through your network or through your network of investors or employees, friends in past positions, whatever, right? To get them to help you design that product. And it's also correct that it may be that there's no revenue on that beta relationship, but I think you're going to, as you sort of deliver the product and have that first customer and understand perhaps there's some features that you thought were important that they don't, and vice versa, there's a huge amount of value, as well as kind of that logo on your next series of conversations.
And I think a good holy grail vision is to be building something that somebody's really excited about. Maybe they give you an upfront payment, right? So it takes away the need to kind of raise money to build. And it's okay to build your first few things custom. Eventually you want to have everything scalable, but your first customers should have input into what the product looks like. And if you get what I call NRE, or non-recurring engineering funding, sometimes they'll pay you non-dilutive capital, right, to actually build something that they care about. And I think that's a good vision. If you can get into that conversation, it's not always possible, but.
So I want to answer this because this is my life every day. So data tribe, we do cybersecurity. We also do a little bit of data science. So we've got I've got one kind of ML company, and all we do at Data Tribe is 80% of our time is spent playing entrepreneur. It's the greatest job I've ever had because I get to play entrepreneur, but don't worry about payroll. So I love it. But so all we do is think about the early days, right? So we're market on like getting paid. Like think about value exchange, right? Like so early on, whether it's their time, their expertise, but ideally their money. But I don't know when you say launch, like launch is a very broad term. Like it could just be like first light of day that anybody's kind of touched the software, or it could be, hey, we've got feedback and now we're first light of day with somebody, we're asking people to pay for it. Kind of that's a big range there. But early on, you just want to create something that delights people. Nowadays, especially for your market, selling to technical people is the hardest job in the world because they're bombarded with messages, and most are trained to be skeptical of the messages. Like they're super logical. You can't really get into emotional sort of buying behavior. So, and everybody talks about PLG these days, but PLG is like a misnomer. Like early days of selling is hand-to-hand combat. Like if you leave it up to the internet to kind of like get your customers, then you don't really know your customers because it's just some digit behind a thing. So, I mean, by know them, I don't mean like, their age, race or whatever. I mean, like, why are they here? What is driving their motivation for even looking at your product? So I'd say like the whole start with your friends, but start small. Don't think big. Think big in terms of your act, to think global, act local, act small. Like the first 10 customers are the hardest. And those first 10 customers should become your best friend as you kind of go through that process, because it's not just, do they buy it, but how do they use it? When do they use it? How often do they use it? What do they like? What don't they like? Kind of what Anna was saying, just in terms of like that customer feedback. Oftentimes what you'll find is you're selling something completely different than what you think you're selling. And you don't know that until you get there and you get that feedback. And then those early customers create, we call it trust signals, but even though these people are really hard to sell to, everybody's a human being, and we don't do things that we don't trust. Human beings are very emotionally driven, decision making. Even though we think we're being logical, but it's built on biases, upon biases. So those trust signals are really important. And then you kind of start to think about concentric circles out. I don't even like to use the word channel early on because you don't really know. Maybe it ends up being a channel play, but guess what? If it's a channel play, then you got to know that channel partner. That channel partner is your customer, and they have to become your best friend. So that's what I would say is like just, think small, think very ICP.
And why all of this is important is because we may ask you about it, and you should know that, because we want to know, did you actually ask them? Because, it's like Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. That never happens.
Right.
You have to know, and you'll be making changes all the time, but we want to know, like, okay, did you have customer surveys? Did you talk to them? What does the end user want? You're right, because there's a difference between sometimes the buyer and the end user, but you need to talk to all of them. And maybe some people can be geniuses in a lab or a studio or whatever. Maybe they're not the best to communicate that. You have to think about that too, because there are amazing technical salespeople, and they are gold, right? Because they know how to talk both languages, and that's really important too. So you have to figure out like who on your team is best at communicating that. But we want to know because early we invest pre-revenue all the time, but then show me the data, show me, we found out that this is working or this isn't great. We want to see that too, that you've had that growth because everything's not perfect. And sometimes we'll call those people and we'll ask them. So, think about how you're going to communicate that to an investor, because then I think that makes like, I've got to get to my 10 people, really know them and be able to put that in my pitch deck and have all that data that convinced us that you really did, ask the right questions and talk to the consumer.
Great. Well, a great set of advice. Thank you, Mark, Andy, Catherine, Maurice, and you can talk to them some more, but we have to move on to Tim, the next part of the program.
Let's give it up for our awesome panel, please.
Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice, Mark, Catherine, Andy, and hopefully you guys will stick around and network. We have the place until 12 noon. So our next segment will be our presenting companies. So while we clear the stage, Mark, are you coming up? Mark Haas?
Thanks, Tian. So the whole purpose of CONNECTpreneur is to connect people together and grow business. So it's really important to find organizations and institutions that break down barriers, reduce the friction, and accelerate transactions. So this is certainly true in developing countries, and our next presenter, Asil, has found a way to both buy good and do good, is either connecting investors, donations, et cetera, as well as selling products, getting them to market. So I'd like to introduce Nasrat Khalil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nasrat Khalid, the founder of the ASEAL platform. I founded ASEAL 5 years ago after leaving the World Bank. ASEAL empowers underdeveloped and developing communities to join the digital economy. What I mean by that is, on the left, as you can see, we have Abdul. Abdul is in rural Afghanistan. His family, for the last 6 generations, have been creating handmade carpets. He is not able to sell his carpets to you or the global customers because of problems in accepting payments and the supply chain that's required to get his carpets to you. Now, Abdul is one of the 3 billion people globally who does not have this ability to join the digital economy and join this party that we're having. So our solution to that 5 years ago when we started was the ASEAL Buy Good. ASEAL Buy Good gives Abdul a platform to list his carpets and market them to buyers all around the world. And then ASEAL is serving as a trusted partner for the buyers and the sellers. Now, building further on the ASEAL Buy Good, for the first country, which we had Afghanistan, and now the second country, Turkey, when the government of Afghanistan collapsed, as you might have all seen, we used our existing infrastructure, fintech, and supply chain to respond to the humanitarian crisis. Now, till date, we have helped 500,000 people in Afghanistan. All the aid is going directly from people like yourself in institutions, and types of food packages, life packages, and hopefully soon we'll get cash transfer too. All the assistance going to the beneficiaries is tracked using the OMAID or HOPE ID card system, which gives you the first system in the world where you can not only just directly send aid to people, but also track it at every stage, just like your Uber Eats order coming to your home. This is a huge market opportunity between the buy good and do good, which is the handmade and humanitarian sector, and the grants and contracts with all of these international agencies in the DMV area, an addressable market of $1,815 billion. There's obviously a lot of competition in this space, but as you can see, Etsy and GoFundMe, the 2 buy good, do good leaders in the world, only focuses on the top 15 developed countries of the world, whereas we are designed for underdeveloped countries. Other institutions such as the World Food Program, which spends billions of dollars a year, have an overhead of over 15%. Our first $1 million going to Afghanistan in aid had a 16% overhead, 1/6. We're saving billions of dollars that is supposed to feed people in the future. We have a lot of traction, over 10,000 customers, both on buy good and do good. As I mentioned, we've helped over 500,000 people in Afghanistan. We're featured in some of the world's biggest news agencies, and we have a very small contract already from the US Agency for International Development. Our platforms are online on both the app stores and the website. Our team is a bunch of amazing people from the international development space. We have 1 IPO and over 110 years of experience in building systems that transform countries. I was raised as a refugee in Pakistan, and I'm a self-taught computer system engineer. I've worked with the World Bank, the State Department, and I'm a special immigrants visa holder brought into the US because of my work with the US Army in Afghanistan. We have over $2 million in revenue. We've never accepted external institutional funding. We've done this on our own, with our own money. Last year, we did $1.5 million in revenue. This year, we want to do $16 million. For every transaction, we get 16% fee. And we're raising a $4.7 million round. We've already raised $1 million. We're going to use that to expand to start the expansion to all of the 41 underdeveloped countries, and hopefully impact and save a ton of lives in the process, and be a public company in the next 5 years. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Khalid. Every company needs digital services. We're all connected to each other, and even if you're a small business, it's useful to have digital transformation, cyber protection, IT solutions, analytics, et cetera, but small companies can't afford that. So our next presenter is Vinard Wright of Wave Welcome, is providing those kind of services at a high skill level at a reasonable price. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Did you know the average ransomware attack or data breach costs more than $4.5 million to resolve? So for most small businesses, this would immediately put them out of business. So what we have done is developed Fluent, which is the next generation of technology product awareness. So currently, there are more than 30,000 products available for small businesses to choose from. And this is incredibly intimidating for most small businesses who do not have access to a chief information officer such as myself, and who typically cannot afford more expensive services. So what we've done is generated a platform that really leverages the power of IT experts to make more informed decisions. And this is accomplished by leveraging the ratings from IT experts who have experience in the industry to connect companies with the technologies they need in order to be successful. And in addition to that, they're able to securely purchase the products through the Fluent Marketplace, which then makes sure that the payments are secure by putting payments into escrow. And after the transaction has been completed, then the transaction is rated, the product moves up, and the rating is visible for future transactions. So the market size for IT products and services is massive, and it's growing. But initially, we're only focused on the U.S. market, which is $870 million, but $87 million for our SOM. So there are products in the market that do make connections between small businesses and influencers who can increase brand awareness, but there's no platform that effectively leverages the power of crowdsourcing. So there are products like Gartner, JD Edwards, but those are typically priced out of range of small businesses. And what we're really doing here is leveraging the power of IT experts to say exactly which product is best for closing cybersecurity gaps. So to date, we have received commitments from 5 small businesses who are going to help us to flesh out any bugs in the system and to make suggestions about additional products and features. We have also gotten commitments from 5 IT managed services providers who are going to serve as the initial IT experts on the platform, and we are securely hosting this on Microsoft Azure as well. So this is a web app, and it's also available as a mobile app as well. So we have a very experienced team in that it has to date raised more than $100 million and completed 6 successful exits. So we're pretty confident that this is the team that is going to make sure that Fluent is successful long term. So in terms of our business model, we are relying on subscription fees, and we are taking 10% of the subscription. And initially in 2023, we're projecting $2.5 million. And this will increase to $10 million in 2024 by expanding across the nation, and to $50 million in 2025 by expanding globally. So we're asking for $2 million for customer acquisition and for additional build out of products, of the product, additional features. In addition to that, we're also looking to focus on our internal operations, and of the $2 million, we've already raised $352,000. So I'm looking forward to talking to you in more detail about what we're doing with Fluent and how we are the next generation of technology product awareness. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Vinard. Diabetes is kind of a nasty disease that leads to blindness, amputation, a lot of other problems, leads to increased strokes. But if you look to your left and look to your right, one of the 3 of you has prediabetes and doesn't even know it. So the important here is to know when you have diabetes, monitor your sugar output. And so our next presenter from MedWatch, Colleen Cushion, will tell you exactly what she's going to do in her company to help you know where your your sugar control and your diabetes is. Thanks, Colleen.
So COVID was a global pandemic that took the lives of 6 million people over 2 years. Would it shock you to know that diabetes is going to take the lives of 7 million people this year alone? Most of you here today, some of you have already come up and talked to me, know somebody, a friend, family, colleague with diabetes. Prevalence statistics show that 1 in 11 of you here today has diabetes. And again, like he said, if you look to your left and look to your right, again, statistically speaking, 1 in 3 of you have prediabetes. But here's the real problem. Monitoring diabetes this day and age is still painful, expensive, and inconvenient. This leads to poor compliance and significant health consequences. Current CGM solutions, that's continuous glucose monitoring, are dominated by Abbott Laboratories Freestyle Libre and the Dexcom G6, soon to be G7. Now, no doubt about it, these devices provide a significant improvement over finger sticks. But these devices are still expensive, they're still invasive, and they're still inconvenient. They cannot be repositioned, and they only last 10 to 14 days. So here's what we're going to do about it. Our device is going to be non-invasive and pain-free, absolutely no entry into the skin. It's going to be affordable and long-lasting. Our device will last for 1 year, and we have the ability to create one that will last 3 years, driving the cost down for even the poorest countries in the world. Our device is going to be convenient and easy to use. You can reposition it, and it's as easy as putting on and taking off a Band-Aid. In the United States, there are over 133 million people with diabetes or prediabetes. Globally, over 530 million have diabetes, with many more millions with prediabetes. We expect to be the first to market with a non-invasive continuous glucose monitor in a wearable. We expect FDA clearance Q1 2024. We have multiple patents pending and expect to file around 50 more this year, and our clinical trials are beginning in just a couple of weeks. Our team's collective clinical experience, regulatory and compliance acumen, research savvy, growth and sustainability mentality, and fundraising credentials put MedWatch in an excellent position for success. This management and advisory team has 10 exits, 26 acquisitions, 8 spinoffs, and has raised over $3 billion in capital so far. We're currently working to get letters of intent for 50,000 to 100,000 units. If we hit our most conservative sales goals, an investor could get a 10x return in 3 years and over 150x return in 6 years from launch. We've raised $1 million in pre-seed funding, and we're raising $7 million now through Safe Notes to get us across the finish line and bring this to market. My name is Colleen, and I look forward to meeting you and answering any questions you have. Please stop by the MedWatch booth.
So we all want to protect our children, and so the ability to do that in a technological age is getting more and more difficult as more devices are available to more people. And our next presenter, Denise Taylor, is going to tell us about how her company is actually making it safer for children and making it safer for companies to comply with the overlapping and increasing regulations and compliance with those rules.
Good morning. I'm Denise Taylor, and I'm the CEO and founder of Privacy Vaults Online. We are global experts in minors' digital identity and privacy, and we're known as Privo in the marketplace. And we are building the global de facto standard for protecting minors online. If I can flip my switch here. There we go. For decades, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act has been the law of the land. It's a U.S. law. It says if you're a commercial entity, before you collect, use, and disclose personally identifiable information from children, you're supposed to obtain parental consent. But for those decades, companies have ignored the law. They've put their head in the sand and they haven't done much. That's why all the kids that are 9 have a TikTok account. This is what the map looks like now. I would call it a tsunami. We're at a tipping point and Privo is crossing the chasm. There's a seismic shift in regulatory pressure, intense pressure around research that's showing real online harms to children. Parents are awakening, and there's a growing recognition that trust matters for businesses. 1 in 3 internet users is a minor under the age of 18. That means there's 1.6 billion minors online right now. But as my slide says, it's hard to know who's a kid. And that little secret has enabled tech companies to provide your children and grandchildren with the digital equivalent of a fake ID. And they've used that to access what they want on the internet. Thanks to Privo, we're here to change that. So I want you to think of us as Ring for the internet. We're about to make the internet age aware. We're working with 100 companies. Our privacy tech and compliance software and services mitigate that risk while protecting children's privacy and safety. We've generated over $2 million in revenue last year in ARR. We were at 2.3. We're on track to do $4 million in revenue this year. Our newest addition is a patented minors protected device and data registry and query. And we want to transform the market so that they know when there's a kid knocking at the digital door. We're laser focused on 2 things. Our current services help companies enable and allow kids in, and our new registry service will do the job of keeping them out. We want parents to simply tell the device the age of their child, and we'll act as the signal to every age gate on the planet that's got its head in the sand waiting for your kid to fit. We have, you can come and talk to me about how it works. 4 minutes doesn't work. Our competitive advantages, we have strong barriers to entry. We've got 8 patents, 90% customer retention. These are clients of our service today that are using the technology. 15 of those 100 customers are on the tech platform. And we've built out that wheel of services on the other side of the screen. There's high-value use cases when it comes to identity. Children don't have access to their electronic healthcare records, and the reason for that is very complex, but suffice it to say there's opportunity there. Our business model is primarily subscription-based. We're currently with our 100 customers at about $23,000 per. We want to grow to 1,400, a little over $50,000 per. I've been on the bottom end of the hockey stick long enough. It's time to take off, and that's why we're here to get this bridge closed. I went to the CONNECTpreneur back in December, opened a $1 million bridge. I've got 700,000 circled. It's tech executives in identity and a small boutique fund. I'd like to close up that 300,000. We want to launch our registry, help enable at least 5 million kids to be protected, and build our value to close our first institutional round by the end of this year. I welcome you to join my team, join Privo in protecting children around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. Great job. I've been tracking you for many years, and it's great to see you getting lots of traction. Ties to our last question from our VCs. Now I'd like to bring up Sarah Clasper, who will introduce our final 3 presenting companies. And again, as a reminder, we have the room until noon, or we have the whole floor until noon, thanks to the business school. Sarah is an associate with the law firm of Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, which is bringing a revolutionary and pretty disruptive structure to how legal is performed and billed to startup companies. And as proof of that, Next has been awarded some amazing accolades from Legal Times and Legal Week in the last 2 years. Startup and Emerging Growth Company Law Firm of the Year, and they're nominated as the best law firm for startup success and most innovative legal department. So congratulations to Anthony Millen and to Sarah and the team at Next. They're phenomenal. They're very long-time, loyal supporters and sponsors of CONNECTpreneur. So we're very grateful to you. Thank you very much, and welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Tien. I would like to thank you and the CONNECTpreneur team for today's great event. We are very honored to be a longtime sponsor and supporter of CONNECTpreneur, a leading global event connecting entrepreneurs, investors, and other members of the startup ecosystem. Next, powered by Schulman Rogers, is an innovative new model for delivery of legal services, from launch through every stage of a company's growth. And it has been designed from an entrepreneur's perspective. Next offers predictable and reasonable legal fees by productizing a broad range of legal services into fixed-price packages. Our clients work directly with seasoned attorneys through our hands-on legal services model. Next integrates a robust technology platform to create a client-centric experience that is collaborative, efficient, and transparent. The first company I have the honor of introducing is Render. Render is a remote engagement tool built to save contractors time and money by streamlining the first step in the renovation process simply and accurately. Please welcome founder and CEO, AJ Ballantyne.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Looking out here, I imagine that most of you have had experience remodeling a part of your home, a bathroom or a kitchen. Maybe not yourselves, but you probably hired a professional, right? And I want you to think back about the earliest part of that process. Calling around to various contractors, inviting them into your home, likely on the evenings or on the weekends, perhaps during the work week, having to take off of work and spending hours with contractors inside of your home. Well, that part of the process kind of sucks, doesn't it? I mean, if you think about it from the contractor's perspective, it's not much better. Contractors waste so much time and money chasing down cold leads, spending hours of their own time inside of customers' homes that end up not choosing them for the work anyway. Well, we seek to change that with Render. We are introducing the first remote engagement solution for the home improvement industry, which by default is not easy, right? Think about the hurdles that prevent a contractor from bidding a job remotely. First and foremost, how do you get accurate measurements of a space unless you're standing in it? Well, these are the challenges that we faced back in 2020 when I had to shut my own remodeling company down for 2 months during COVID. And it was during those 2 months that I had to figure out how in the world could I actually sell projects remotely. So we did exactly that, and that award-winning idea turned into Render. It is an app that scans and creates floor plans in a matter of seconds, and it does that remotely. It also connects contractors to other various parts of the home improvement ecosystem that they already enjoy, which helps save that contractor tremendous amounts of time. We're talking a matter of weeks into minutes. So let me show you how it works. You as a homeowner, instead of having a contractor come out to your home, will instead receive an invite to join that contractor on Render. So when you open the project, you'll be invited to scan your space, and after you do that, a floor plan with all the measurements for everything inside that room will be sent to the contractor so that they have everything they need to bid that job remotely. Not to mention, that contractor can then drop that information into any tools that they already use, from CAD software to CRMs and estimate softwares, so that, again, they can save tremendous amounts of time throughout their entire sales lifecycle. The market opportunity here is absolutely tremendous. It's $500 billion in annual U.S. spend in home improvement alone, of which we've identified about a $5 billion serviceable market just in lead generation and subscription revenue. There's over 500,000 home improvement professionals, and over 100 million projects are done in the U.S. every single year. So how in the world are we going to disrupt that market? Well, it's because I've said it already. We can help save these contractors tremendous amounts of time. We can help them grow and scale their business in any economy, all while providing convenience for you guys, right? No more spending hours in the evenings while you're cooking dinner, entertaining contractors. We've been asked about competition, and frankly put, there is none. There's not another company out there that's offering remote engagement solutions for contractors. Now, we've been compared to several other measuring apps that are out there on the market because we have an amazing one ourselves. But if you look at these measuring apps, they're all done in person, and they're all focused on just that first initial part, not about giving contractors other various tools to help them save time throughout their sales life cycle. We've assembled an amazing team, decades of experience across home improvement, mobile app development, marketing, technology, sales. Joe Valeri, our executive chairman and our chief strategy officer, has had several previous exits and has been advising us on business growth and strategy. We aim to do $10 million in annual recurring revenue by year 3, which is when we look to monetize 2 other opportunities with lead generation and marketplace data sales. We're currently raising $2 million. We officially have gone over $1 million raised, which, hallelujah. And we're looking to close the back half of this round as quickly as we can, looking for that lead investor so that we can aid our go-to-market and scaling our team. With that being said, I'd like to thank you guys for the time. My business partner and I will be at our table answering any questions you might have about investing in the future of home improvement. Thanks so much.
Thank you, AJ. I now have the privilege of introducing Screens. Screens is a live cloud video platform enabling a paradigm shift for interactive, ultra-low latency, personalized viewing experiences. Please welcome founder and CEO, Mark Todd.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. So my name is Mark Todd. I'm the founder and CEO of Screens. So what is Screens? Screens is an ultra-low latency video engine that powers a virtual set-top box from the cloud. What does that mean? Imagine you're sitting in front of your smart TV and using your mobile device for control. Screens allows you to reposition the video on your TV without a set-top box. It allows you to blend web content and blend IoT. It allows you also to create personalized, interactive experiences, all from the cloud. The power of Screens allows you to create multiple views from your mobile device, set up various layouts, add sports and video games, resize the window in real time, and overlay content in over 255 layers to make your layout the way you want to have it. So why is this disruptive? So it turns out that the cost for producing video in the cloud has been hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per hour per viewer. Up until now, it has been impossible to produce video in the cloud cost effectively. That's why we have set-top boxes. That's why we have PlayStations and Xboxes. But through a semiconductor revolution, the cost per unit has been reduced 1,000 times. And if you watch this cost curve, as that cost comes down, all of a sudden producing streaming video on the cloud opens up brand new markets. The TAM grows to greater than $100 billion. Screens is a video platform designed to go after this TAM. Screens has an outstanding team with deep experience in both semiconductor and video processing and distribution. We have a $7 million seed investment from the AMD Semiconductor Company, and they're a big strategic partner of ours. We have 9 granted patents and many patent pendings. And here's this important point. We are 100% a software company. We are a platform as a service. We're taking advantage of accelerated semiconductors, which are brand new to the cloud. And we're generating revenue now. Last year, we generated over $250,000 in ARR, and we're projected to go over $1 million here in 2023. Screens is really built to win big. Our commercial traction is strong. We have a lot of great active customers like Fox Broadcasting, and we're adding customers like Verizon and Cox very quickly. So how do we make money? We're not a B2C company, we're a B2B2C company, which means that we're selling to people like the MSOs and service providers, like a Comcast. And so we charge them based on subscription of number of end users, and we charge per monthly. So one proof of concept that we're actively involved in Cox, we're shooting for 50 cents per sub per month, and they have over 4 million subscribers. That alone is over 24 million ARR, and that's just for one customer. The competition slide, video is an ancient industry. But as you can see, all of the companies that are down in the lower left-hand corner build traditional hardware platforms. They build their own hardware, and they're built on older semiconductor. Screens is built in the cloud and built on brand new accelerated semiconductor. The value creation potential is absolutely enormous, and it's mainly because the vast B2B2C market creates billions of dollars of opportunity. Screens is actually a very big idea. It's a big idea. It's changing the way streaming is going to be done going from here into the future. We're currently raising a $5 million round. We've raised $1 million so far. We're going to use those funds to expand our sales force and expand our product development.
And we're happy to take questions at our table. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I now have the pleasure of introducing Vive. Vive's patented antimicrobial lighting technology is non-UV, chemical-free, and unlike other disinfection tools, is designed for continuous use while people are present. Please welcome Colleen Costello.
Good morning. I'm Colleen Costello, CEO and co-founder of Vive. Thanks so much for joining us today. Vive offers LED technology that can kill germs safely and continuously around people, essentially delivering protection to the spaces that matter to us most. I think after the recent few years, I probably don't have to tell the group the challenges that germs can cause, unfortunately, anything from a single germ driving a global pandemic to antibiotic resistance, foodborne illnesses, sick days, even just mold and mildew in your shower grout, for example. What our technology looks to address is really the constant presence of germs in all the spaces around us, on the surfaces that we currently touch, in the air that we breathe. You'd be surprised how dirty your desktop might be and how little people clean it. Unfortunately, also germs like E. coli can divide every 20 minutes. So if you only clean it in the morning, by the end of the day, you got north of 2 million E. coli if that lands on the table out there that we're all eating at, unfortunately. And the current cleaning options that we have today are really insufficient to address these germ problems. Right now, we're seeing about 32% of common cleaning that's killing what's on surfaces. I recommend you look at the back of a Clorox or Lysol bottle, maybe when you get home, and actually read the instructions. Most people are not using it how it's actually intended with a dwell time. And so we have these major gaps of time in which germs are causing significant issues. That's why I started the company. I'm a biomedical engineer by background. My grandmother contracted a MRSA infection in a hospital, so I had a personal experience with how dramatic these germs can be. This is an example of what the actual product looks like. If you'd like to see it, feel free to come by our table and what it looks like. This is Duke University, a longtime client of ours. Athletic facilities are a huge transmission point for germs. We offer technology that is white light disinfection, essentially. So on my right-hand side, you can see white light fixtures that look like normal fixtures, but they contain a high content of violet light, which are able to continuously, with white light, disinfect and clean those surfaces that are not able to be cleaned continuously throughout the day. We use non-ultraviolet. Some folks may be familiar with ultraviolet light. We're using visible spectrum of light that's safe to be continuously used around people. We're a New York-based company. We've been around for close to a decade now, actually, and we've got over 100 product SKUs that we offer to a whole variety of industries. I'll talk a little bit about that. We're working against bacteria, mold, yeast, fungi, viruses, including SARS-CoV-2, which we've obviously tested due to the COVID pandemic. And we have a significant amount of experience in real-world active third-party testing. So just change out your lights and you can see these type of results, anything from trauma rooms, horticulture, dairy production, you name it. And essentially what we're looking to deliver is different than what's already out there. There's a lot of things that kill germs, but what we're looking to do is safely and continuously provide lighting to do that. So everything we do is B2B, but we do have two sides of our business. One is our commercial fixtures, which applies to places like food processing, hospitals, pharmaceutical manufacturing, which is overhead fixtures. We've had quite a significant amount of traction with top-tier facilities in protecting their environments. These are two snapshot markets, but we've got quite a lot of industrial and commercial markets outside of this as well. Anything ranging from partnership with Delta Airlines, where we're installed in their lavatories on their planes, and they're also one of the investors in our company. We've got great testimonials, happy to share more information. For example, we've just got a recent daycare that reported to us they have had a lot of inbound of germs, but they're not spreading throughout the daycare facility, which we find is really powerful and meaningful. And we essentially go to market both through sales agencies throughout the country, as well as our sort of direct house accounts. We've got significant representation around the country. The other side of our business is our OEM business, which essentially means that we embed our LEDs in other people's products. These are some examples. If you want a cleaner humidifier, if you want to not clean mold and mildew in your shower, I recommend the one all the way on the left. These are available on Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, and essentially we deliver the LEDs to really unique situations, and we get revenue on the hardware as well as the royalty on those products as well. And we've got a significant amount in product development. Tim and I can talk to you a little bit more, but there's some really cool applications on that side of things. We're an intellectual property heavy company, so we've got 26 granted patents and 30 more pending currently, and it's a pretty significant coverage right now as the global leaders in this category. And we've got a fantastic leadership team, a significant amount of experience, and a number of successful exits across the commercial sector. As you can imagine, it's a large market. Germs are everywhere, unfortunately, and so we got to kill them in a lot of different places and in different ways, so there's plenty of opportunity for that. We've got about north of 33% on average revenue growth thus far over the last few years since we were in market. This was a longer deck than I had uploaded. So this is, we've got a significant amount of investors across quite a few categories thus far. We've raised $18 million thus far to date, and we're raising another $5 million. We've got a little over $1 million already closed on that, so happy to talk in more detail about Vive, and hopefully we can be helpful to you in any way that you may have a germ problem. So thanks so much, and good day.
Awesome. I want to applaud all of our presenters. Colleen, way to finish with a bang. Thank you. And we now have networking till noon, so please go to the back room where the coffee and food is and get to know some of our presenting companies. They're really changing and improving the human condition. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll see you in DC on April 20th. Thank you so much.